As much as I like to cover the latest and greatest IEMs, sometimes it's just nice to find out smaller brands and to just put them on a channel to introduce them to everybody so that everybody gets to know them. Today we're gonna find out a little bit more on F Audio, and we have the F Audio Minor here today. Welcome to the Super Chunk Show. Now, F Audio is a company based in Hong Kong and was established back in 2014. Initially, they started by doing OEMs for some other earphone companies and also did reselling for custom IEMs, and later developed their own line of products, including the ones we are talking about today, the F Audio Minor. Oh, just a quick plug-in, if you like the content so far, please like and subscribe and press the bell icon so you can see me every Saturday talking to you about earphones. I try to change the background every weekend, so hopefully it'll make things a little bit more interesting. First, let's talk about the technology and build of the F Audio Minor. Now, the F Audio Minor comes in a very nicely machined chassis. This is made from aluminum that has been anodized to a color that is not very commonly seen in the world of IEMs. It is anodized to a color of rose gold, and inside the chassis actually houses a 10mm beryllium coated dynamic driver with 3 acoustic chambers to shape the sound of the Minor. They also included a steel tube to lend its character to the sound. Now, steel is a bit dense material, so what this happens is that when sound passes through them, they tend to reflect the brighter resonance of the sound. So I think this adds a bit of brightness to the F Audio Minor. Now, the F Audio Minor also comes in a 2-pin configuration. You probably have noted already that this isn't the stock cable that I have on hand. Anyways, this is a loaner unit, not from F Audio. I just happened to borrow one. I've been listening to this for the past 2 weeks. Cable here is just a generic Vision Ears 2-pin cable. So I will not really talk much about stock cable since it's not stock anyways. We'll talk a bit about the fit of the F Audio Minor now. I don't often sing superlatives about the fit of a earphone. In fact, I think if you saw the one that I did on the Sony Z1R, those didn't fit me very well, but hey, it is what it is, right? The F Audio Minor, on the other hand, is a different story. These earphones are extremely comfortable in my ears. I find that the earphone sits rather close to my ear canal, with most of the weight being held up by the ear tip and the cable strain relief as well. The part at the back, as you can see over here, this concha sitting resting part, they don't really come in contact with my concha very much. So I find that this earphone really hinges on these 2 aspects, the ear tips and the strain relief. Also, another thing to note is that the F Audio Minors are very, very lightweight. In fact, they feel like nothing in your ear. So comfort is a big thing that F Audio did correct with the major and minor earphones, since they still share the same chassis anyway. They are extremely comfortable. Next up, let's talk about sound. On the whole, the F Audio Minor, it's a slight V-shaped tuning IEM and is relatively well balanced and natural sounding. There is no excessive emphasis on any particular frequency band, which gives it a natural tonality. Now, we'll start by first talking about the bass. Have you ever had fish balls? Fish balls. It might be a strange Western concept, and you might not be thinking of the same thing that I'm saying, like, dude, why is this guy here talking about fish balls, right? Let me rephrase myself. It's more like fish meatballs. Now that don't make it any better, but anyways, I'll include a picture somewhere over here so you can see what I'm talking about. Now, these fish balls in Asian context, they are actually, fish meatballs. They actually have a texture that is quite bouncy, and that is what I have to say about the F Audio Minor's bass. They are bouncy with great texture. There is a linearity to the way how the Minor transitions from sub to mid bass. Of course, I do not mean that the F Audio Minor is actually flat sounding, but rather the way it tapers to the mid range makes it sound rather linear. There isn't any abnormal spike in the frequency range, and details in the bass region is actually rather average. It is not particularly blur sounding, but neither is it extremely clear. It's actually a good balance, and it's actually very enjoyable. On the whole, with regards to bass, many would actually enjoy the bouncy nature of the bass response. It is rather fun sounding. And next would be mid-range. Now the mid-range of the F Audio minor is slightly recessed from the slight V signature. Tonality, the F Audio minor has a slightly diffuse sound which actually makes it sound rather sweet. Mid-range details, when I listen to it for a short time, I realize that the minor is a very lush and sweet and smooth listen. And when I dive deeper into listening to the minor over a longer period of time, I realize that it is lacking a bit in resolution. Well, does that mean that this earphone is bad? Actually, not really. I can actually see how somebody will actually enjoy this earphone. Sometimes it just sounds warm and sweet, and that is enough to enjoy the music. You do not need to chase every single detail to extract enjoyment out of the music. Some people just enjoy the smoothness and lushness, and this is one of the earphones that does that very well. Next, let's talk about the treble extension of the F Audio minor. Cymbals do not sound overly polite on the F Audio minor, so there is actually good detail, there's a nice crispness to the treble frequencies. But there's one thing I need to say about the treble. If you're looking for a lot of air in this earphone, like the ultra high frequencies giving you that very grand sense of space, if you're looking for that, it is not on this earphone. The minor, although has quite a good treble representation, they do not extend beyond standard treble range, so your ultra highs, they are not really present, so you don't really get the ultra grand sense of space with this earphone. And moving on to soundstage. Now we'll start first with the width and height. The minor, to be honest with you, with regards to width and height, is quite average. As I was scripting this, I actually was listening to this piece of music by Joe Hisaishi. It is the Spirited Away Suites played by the World Dream Orchestra. Now this piece of music is actually recorded really well, and on a really good system you can actually tell soundstage. You can actually make up the soundstage of where the instrument position are, how far the instruments, how deep the instruments are, how is the left and right separation, where the violins are, where the double basses are. You can tell them with pinpoint precision, how far back, how deep in, the sense of air is very great. But with the minor, it is actually quite average. You can tell that there is separation, but they do not go into the extremes, nor do I expect it to for its price range, but they do really do quite a reasonable job. But on the whole, with regards to width and height, they are average. Now next, let's talk about depth. With regard to depth, the minor actually does it in a very interesting manner. You actually get a very good depth perception, so if instruments that are supposed to sound very far back into the orchestra, you can actually hear that they are actually really far back. But the tricky thing is that when you are listening to instruments that are a little bit closer, they don't sound as close as they can be. I think this is because of the slightly lack of resolution with regards to the mid-range. So whenever instruments that are supposed to sound close, they sound close, but they do not have the edges and definition, and this puts a bit of a distance, so they don't sound very realistic with regards to depth towards this aspect. But if you're just wanting to tell how far deep instruments are, they still do quite a good job. And lastly, positioning. Again, positioning is very average. You can make out where the instruments are, but I wouldn't say that they are particularly well separated. They are separated, but not with ultra clarity, and it can be enjoyable. If you're listening to orchestras, obviously that you want to know where everything are, but if you are listening to just vocals, hey, it's perfectly fine. You do not need that kind of extreme soundstage anyways. And moving on, we'll be doing some very quick comparisons. I will compare the F Audio minor with some earphones that are quite close to its price range. We'll start with the first one versus the Final A4000. Now with regards to the Final A4000, the Final A4000 is superior with regards to soundstage and resolution. You really get a lot of fine nitty-gritty micro details with the A4000, and because of its signature, you can actually tell soundstage, you can actually make up the soundstage of the A4000 very well. However, this does not mean that the minor losers at all. The minor actually has a superior and lusher mid-range. So if you're the type of person that likes a very smooth vocal representation, maybe the minor is a better fit for you, while the A4000, if you listen to a lot of classical music, will suit you better. Next up, we'll compare the F Audio minor versus the QDC Neptune. Now in my earlier review of the QDC Neptune, I did mention that they are extremely good for mid-range. And that still holds true. I think the QDC Neptune does a better job when you want to listen to just purely vocals, and that is, you know, your favorite part of the mix, and you listen to them all the time. They are still the best for that in this price category. However, where the QDC Neptune starts to fall apart would be in bass resolution, depth, and high frequency reproduction. This is where the F Audio Minor actually does a way better job than the QDC Neptune. I think the single BA, really doesn't extend too much beyond that. You cannot really push it to do things that is out of its range, but you can actually do so with the dynamic driver. And because of that, on the whole, if you're looking for a more balanced sound with regards to bass, mid-range, and highs, the Minor actually does a really good job. But if you really want to just focus in, zoom in on vocals, maybe the QDC is excellent. And finally, in conclusion, if you're looking for a earphone that is relaxing and fun, you can check out the F Audio Minor. And sometimes because of that, you want that fun sort of signature, you do not want too much resolution, it can be quite a good listen. And also because of its fun signature, you do not really get so much of detail fatigue over a long listening period, and they are also extremely comfortable. Now, the F Audio Minor is a recommended earphone. Thank you very much, and I hope to see you guys very soon. This is a Super Chong show. I will have more stuff coming up next, and hopefully I'll see you around. Thank you very much, and hope to see you guys soon.